The day I quit my job, I did not send a resignation email. I did not schedule a meeting. I did not even give a 2-week notice. I simply stood up from my desk, closed my laptop, and walked out of the building. My manager looked confused. My coworkers looked shocked. And I remember thinking one simple thing as the elevator doors closed. I will never come back here again. But 3 days later, my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I did not recognize. When I answered, the voice on the other end said something I never expected. "Hello, Daniel. This is Mark, the CEO. We need to talk." My name is Daniel. I am 31 years old, and until last year I worked at a fast-growing software company. From the outside, the job looked perfect. Good salary, modern office, ambitious projects, and leadership that constantly talked about innovation and opportunity. When I first joined the company, I felt proud. I worked as a systems analyst responsible for monitoring platform performance and improving operational efficiency. In simple terms, my job was to find problems before they became disasters. For the first year, everything went well. My manager, Chris, praised my work. The projects were challenging but rewarding. And I built strong relationships with several coworkers, including Emma from Product Strategy. Emma was one of the few people who actually listened during meetings, instead of waiting for her turn to speak. She had a calm personality and a sharp mind. Sometimes when everyone else left the office, we stayed behind reviewing data and discussing ways to improve the system. Those quiet evenings became one of the few parts of work I genuinely enjoyed. But as the company grew, something changed. New executives arrived. Deadlines became more aggressive. And slowly, the culture shifted from collaboration to pressure. At first, it was subtle. Longer hours. More weekend messages. Managers expecting immediate responses at night. Then the problems became harder to ignore. Our system infrastructure needed serious upgrades. Several engineers warned leadership about potential risks. I wrote detailed reports explaining the same concerns. But the response was always the same. Focus on growth. The company wanted rapid expansion. Technical stability became secondary. And that is where the real trouble began. The situation reached a breaking point during a project that our team internally called Orion. Orion was supposed to launch a new platform feature designed to attract enterprise clients. The marketing team announced the launch date months in advance. But internally, we knew something alarming. The system was not ready. During a meeting with senior management, I presented data showing potential failure scenarios. Server load risks, database bottlenecks, security concerns. I explained calmly that releasing the platform without additional testing could cause serious outages. The room became very quiet. Then Chris spoke. "Daniel tends to be overly cautious," he said with a smile. A few people laughed politely. My stomach tightened. The meeting continued as if nothing important had been said. Later that afternoon, Emma stopped by my desk. "You were right to say those things," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. "But they do not want to hear it." Over the next several weeks, the pressure increased. The launch deadline approached. My team worked late almost every night trying to reduce risks. But the underlying problems remained. Then something unexpected happened. Chris asked me to modify the risk report. He said the language sounded too negative. I read the edited version he proposed. Entire sections about potential system failure were removed. I looked up at him. "This is misleading," I said. "It is strategic communication," he replied calmly. That moment stayed with me. because I realized something important. Leadership was not trying to solve the problem. They were trying to hide it. Launch day arrived on a Tuesday morning. The entire company celebrated the moment. Marketing announcements went live. Clients received emails. Social media campaigns exploded. At first, everything seemed fine. Then the alerts started. Server latency, database timeouts, authentication failures. Within 20 minutes, the entire platform slowed dramatically. Within 40 minutes, the system crashed completely. Panic spread through the office. Engineering teams rushed to emergency calls. Executives demanded explanations. And suddenly, the warnings I gave weeks earlier were no longer ignored. But instead of admitting the truth, Chris did something unexpected. He blamed my team. He claimed the monitoring tools had failed. He suggested we had not identified the risk early enough. I sat in the conference room, listening to him rewrite history. My hands were shaking. Emma looked at me from across the table with disbelief. After the meeting ended, she approached me. "That was not fair," she said quietly. "No," I replied. "It was not." At that moment, I realized something painful. In this environment, honesty had no value. Accountability only moved downward. And I had become the easiest target. That evening, I stayed late finishing emergency documentation. The office slowly emptied. At some point, I looked around and noticed something strange. For the first time in years, I felt nothing. No anger. No frustration. Just clarity. I closed my laptop, packed my bag, and walked out of the building. No email. No announcement. Just silence. 3 days later, my phone rang. "Hello, Daniel. This is Mark, the CEO." My first instinct was disbelief. Why would the CEO call me? Then he continued speaking. I reviewed the incident reports from the Orion launch. He paused, and I also reviewed the original risk analysis. My heart started beating faster. "That report was written by you, correct?" "Yes," I replied. Another pause. "Why did you leave the company without notice?" he asked. I hesitated before answering. Because nobody was listening. There was silence on the line. Then Mark spoke again. Several engineers mentioned that the report was modified before it reached executive leadership. I felt a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. "I did not modify it," I said carefully. "I suspected that," he replied. Over the next 30 minutes, we talked about everything. The technical concerns, the edited reports, the pressure culture inside the department. Finally, he said something unexpected. "I would like you to return to the company." I laughed softly. "That seems unlikely." But he continued, this time reporting directly to the infrastructure strategy team, not through Chris. The conversation ended with a promise to follow up. 2 weeks later, Chris was no longer managing the department. Several internal processes changed, and I eventually accepted a new role in the company under a different leadership structure. As for Emma, we continued working together. But now the late evenings felt different. Less like survival, more like rebuilding something healthier. Looking back, quitting that day felt terrifying. But sometimes walking away is the only way people start asking the right questions. And sometimes the quietest exit creates the loudest impact. So let me ask you something. If you were in the same situation, would you walk away from a job that ignored the truth? Or would you stay and keep fighting inside the system? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy real stories about workplace drama, unexpected karma, and difficult life decisions, subscribe to the channel because the next story might feel even closer to home.